The Star Chamber in Castle Prestine was an oval room with ivory panels picked out with gold, high mirrors, and stained glass windows. It contained a gold organ with robot organist by Tiffany, a gold-tooled library with android librarian on library ladder, a Louis Quincy desk with android secretary before a manual memo bead recorder, an American bar with robot bartender. Prestine would have preferred human servants, but androids and robots kept secrets. "Be seated, Captain Yeovil," he said courteously. "This is Mr. Regis Sheffield representing me in this matter. That young man is Mr. Sheffield's assistant." "Bunny's my portable law library," Sheffield grunted. Prestine touched a control. The still life in the Star Chamber came alive. The organist played, the librarian sorted books, the secretary typed, the bartender shook drinks. It was spectacular. And the impact, carefully calculated by industrial psychometrists, established control for Prestine and put visitors at a disadvantage. "You spoke of a man named Foyle, Captain Yeovil?" Prestine prompted. Captain Peter Yang Yeovil of Central Intelligence was a lineal descendant of the learned Mencius and belonged to the intelligence Tong of the Inner Planet's armed forces. For 200 years, the IPAF had entrusted its intelligence work to the Chinese who, with a 5,000-year history of cultivated subtlety behind them, had achieved wonders. Captain Yang Yeovil was a member of the dreaded Society of Papermen, an adept of the Tianjin image makers, a master of superstition, and fluent in the secret speech. He did not look Chinese. Yang Yeovil hesitated, fully aware of the psychological pressures operating against him. He examined Prestine's ascetic, basilic face, Sheffield's blunt, aggressive expression, and the eager young man named Bunny, whose rabbit features had an unmistakable oriental cast. It was necessary for Yeovil to reestablish control, or effect a compromise. He opened with a flanking movement. "Are we related anywhere within 15 degrees of consanguinity?" he asked Bunny in the Mandarin dialect. "I am of the house of the learned Mense, whom the barbarians call Mencius." "Then we are hereditary enemies," Bunny answered in faltering Mandarin, "for the formidable ancestor of my line was deposed as governor of Shantung in 342 BC by the earth pig Meng Se." "With all courtesy, I shave your ill-informed eyebrows," Yang Yeovil said. Bunny laughed and retorted, "Most respectfully, I singe your snaggle teeth." "Come, sirs," Prestine protested. "We are reaffirming a 3,000-year-old blood feud," Yang Yeovil explained to Prestine, who looked sufficiently unsettled by the conversation and the laughter which he did not understand. He tried a direct thrust. "When will you be finished with Foyle?" he asked. "What Foyle?" Sheffield cut in. "What Foyle have you got?" "There are 13 of that name associated with the clan Prestine." An interesting number. Did you know I am a master of superstition? Some day I must show you the mirror and listen mystery. I refer to the foil involved in a reported attempt on Mr. Prestine's life this morning." "Prestine," Prestine corrected. "I am not Mr. I am Prestine of Prestine." "3 attempts have been made on Prestine's life," Sheffield said. "You'll have to be more specific." 3 this morning? Prestine must have been busy. Yang Yeovil sighed. Sheffield was proving himself a resolute opponent. The intelligence man tried another diversion. "I do wish our Mr. Presto had been more specific." "Your Mr. Presto?" Prestine exclaimed. "Oh, yes. Didn't you know one of your 500 Prestos was an agent of ours? That's odd. We took it for granted you'd find out and went ahead with the confusion operation." Prestine looked appalled. Yang Yeovil crossed his legs and continued to chat breezily. "That's the basic weakness in routine intelligence procedure. You start finessing before finesse is required." "He's bluffing," Prestine burst out. "None of our Prestos could possibly have any knowledge of Gulliver Foyle." "Thank you," Yang Yeovil smiled. "That's the Foyle I want. When can you let us have him?" Sheffield scowled at Prestine and then turned on Yang Yeovil. "Who's us?" he demanded. "Central Intelligence." "Why do you want him?" "Do you make love to a woman before or after you take your clothes off?" "That's a damned impertinent question to ask." "And so is yours. When can you let us have Foyle?" "When you show cause." "To whom?" "To me." Sheffield hammered a heavy forefinger against his palm. "This is a civilian matter concerning civilians. Unless war material, war personnel, or the strategy and tactics of a war in being are involved, civilian jurisdiction shall always prevail." 303 Terran Appeals 191, murmured Bunny. The Nomad was carrying war material. The Nomad was transporting platinum bullion to Mars Bank, Prestine snapped. If money is I am leading this discussion, Sheffield interrupted. He swung around on Yang Yovel. Name the war material. This blunt challenge knocked Yang Yovel off balance. He knew that the crux of the Nomad situation was the presence on board the ship of 20 pounds of pyre, the total world supply, which was probably irreplaceable now that its discoverer had disappeared. He knew that Sheffield knew that they both knew this. He had assumed that Sheffield would prefer to keep pyre unnamed, and yet here was the challenge to name the unnameable. He attempted to meet bluntness with bluntness. "All right, gentlemen, I'll name it now. The Nomad was transporting 20 pounds of a substance called pyre." Prestine started. Sheffield silenced him. "What's pyre?" "According to our reports from Mr. Prestine's Mr. Presto." "Oh, that was a bluff." Yang Yovel laughed and momentarily regained control. "According to intelligence, pyre was developed for Prestine by a man who subsequently disappeared. Pyre is a mish metal, a pyrophore. That's all we know for a fact. But we've had vague reports about it. Unbelievable reports from reputable agents. If a fraction of our inferences are correct, pyre could make the difference between a victory and a defeat." "Nonsense! No war material has ever made that much difference." "No? I cite the fission bomb of 1945. I cite the null-G anti-gravity installations of 2022. Tally's all-field radar trip screen of 2194. Material can often make the difference, especially when there's the chance of the enemy getting it first." "There's no such chance now. Thank you for admitting the importance of pyre." "I admit nothing. I deny everything." "Central Intelligence is prepared to offer an exchange. A man for a man. The inventor of pyre for Gully foil." "You've got him?" Sheffield demanded. "Then why badger us for foil?" "Because we've got a corpse," Yang Yovel flared. "The outer satellites command at him on Lassell for 6 months, trying to carve information out of him. We pulled him out with a raid at a cost of 79% casualties. We rescued a corpse. We still don't know if the outer satellites were having a cynical laugh at our expense, letting us recapture a body. We still don't know how much they ripped out of him." Prestine sat bolt upright at this. His merciless fingers tapped slowly and sharply. "Damn it," Yang Yovel stormed. "Can't you recognize a crisis, Sheffield? We're on a tightrope. What the devil are you doing backing Prestine in this shabby deal? You're the leader of the Liberal Party, Terra's arch-patriot. You're Prestine's political arch-enemy. Sell him out, you fool, before he sells us all out." "Captain Yovel," Prestine broke in with icy venom, "these expressions cannot be countenanced." "We want and need pyre," Yang Yovel continued. "We'll have to investigate that 20 pounds of pyre, rediscover the synthesis, learn to apply it to the war effort, and all this before the OS beats us to the punch, if they haven't already. But Prestine refuses to cooperate. Why? Because he's opposed to the party in power. He wants no military victories for the Liberals. He'd rather we lost the war for the sake of politics, because rich men like Prestine never lose. Come to your senses, Sheffield. You've been retained by a traitor. What in God's name are you trying to do?" Before Sheffield could answer, there was a discreet tap on the door of the Star Chamber, and Saul Dagenham was ushered in. Time was when Dagenham was one of the Inner Planet's research wizards, a physicist with inspired intuition, total recall, and a sixth-order computer for a brain. But there was an accident at Tycho Sands, and the fission blast that should have killed him did not. Instead, it turned him dangerously radioactive. It turned him hot. It transformed him into a 25th century typhoid Mary. He was paid 25,000 credit a year by the Inner Planet's government to take precautions which they entrusted him to carry out. He avoided physical contact with any person for more than 5 minutes per day. He could not occupy any room other than his own for more than 30 minutes a day. Commanded and paid by the IP to isolate himself, Dagenham had abandoned research and built the Colossus of Dagenham Couriers, Inc. When Yang Yovel saw the short blonde cadaver with leaden skin and death's head smile enter the Star Chamber, he knew he was assured of defeat in this encounter. He was no match for the three men together. He arose at once. "I am getting an admiralty order for Foyle," he said. "As far as intelligence is concerned, all negotiations are ended. From now on, it's war." "Captain Yeovil is leaving," Prestine called to the jaunt watch officer who had guided Dagenham in. "Please see him out through the maze." Young Yeovil waited until the officer stepped alongside him and bowed. Then, as the man courteously motioned to the door, young Yeovil looked directly at Prestine, smiled ironically, and disappeared with a faint pop. "Prestine!" Bunny exclaimed. "He jaunted. This room isn't blind to him. He—" "Evidently," Prestine said icily. "Inform the master of the household," he instructed the amazed watch officer. "The coordinates of the Star Chamber are no longer secret. They must be changed within 24 hours. And now, Mr. Dagenham—" "1 minute," Dagenham said. "There's that admiralty order." Without apology or explanation, he disappeared too. Prestine raised his eyebrows. "Another party to the Star Chamber's secret," he murmured. But at least he had the tact to conceal his knowledge until the secret was out. Dagenham reappeared. "No point wasting time going through the motions of the maze," he said. "I've given orders to Washington. They'll hold Yeovil up. 2 hours guaranteed, 3 hours probably, 4 hours possible." "How will they hold him up?" Bunny asked. Dagenham gave him his deadly smile. "Standard FFC operation of Dagenham couriers. Fun, fantasy, confusion, catastrophe. We'll need all 4 hours. Damn, I've disrupted your dolls, Prestine." The robots were suddenly capering in lunatic fashion as Dagenham's hard radiation penetrated their electronic systems. "No matter, I'll be on my way." "Foyle?" Prestine asked. "Nothing yet," Dagenham grinned his death's head smile. "He's really unique. I've tried all the standard drugs and routines on him. Nothing. Outside, he's just an ordinary spaceman, if you forget the tattoo on his face. But inside, he's got steel guts. Something's got hold of him and won't give." "What's got hold of him?" Sheffield asked. "I hope to find out." "How?" "Don't ask. You'd be an accessory. Have you got a ship ready, Prestine?" Prestine nodded. "I'm not guaranteeing there'll be any nomad for us to find, but we'll have to get a jump on the Navy if there is. Law ready, Sheffield?" "Ready. I'm hoping we won't have to use it." "I'm hoping too. But again, I'm not guaranteeing." "All right. Stand by for instructions. I'm on my way to crack Foyle." "Where have you got him?" Dagenham shook his head. "This room isn't secure." He disappeared. He jaunted Cincinnati, New Orleans, Monterey to Mexico City, where he appeared in the psychiatry wing of the giant hospital of the combined Terran universities. Wing was hardly an adequate name for this section, which occupied an entire city in the metropolis, which was the hospital. Dagenham jaunted up to the 43rd floor of the therapy division and looked into the isolated tank where Foyle floated, unconscious. He glanced at the distinguished bearded gentleman in attendance. "Hello, Fritz." "Hello, Saul." "Hell of a thing, the head of psychiatry mining a patient for me." "I think we owe you favors, Saul." "You still brooding about Tycho Sands, Fritz?" "I'm not. Am I lousing your wings with radiation?" "I've had everything shielded." "Ready for the dirty work?" "I wish I knew what you were after." "Information." "And you have to turn my therapy department into an inquisition to get it?" "That was the idea." "Why not use ordinary drugs?" "Tried them already, no good. He's not an ordinary man." "You know this is illegal." "I know." "Changed your mind? Want to back out? I can duplicate your equipment for $250,000. "No, Saul. We'll always owe you favors." "Then let's go. Nightmare Theater first." They trundled the tank toward a corridor and into a 100-feet squared padded room. It was one of therapy's bypassed experiments. Nightmare Theater had been an early attempt to shock schizophrenics back into the objective world by rendering the fantasy world into which they were withdrawing uninhabitable. But the shattering and laceration of patients' emotions had proved to be too cruel and dubious a treatment. For Dagenham's sake, the head of psychiatry had dusted off the 3D visual projectors and reconnected all sensory projectors. They decanted Foyle from his tank, gave him a reviving shot, and left him in the middle of the floor. They removed the tank, turned off the lights, and entered the concealed control booth. There, they turned on the projectors.